My name's Darren, and I used to rent a small third-floor apartment in a run-down building on the edge of a mid-sized town in Missouri. The place wasn't much, just a one-bedroom, cracked tile in the bathroom, carpet that had seen better decades, and paper-thin walls. But the rent was cheap, and back then that's really all I cared about. I'd moved in after a breakup, one of those long, drawn-out ones where both of you know it's over, but neither wants to be the bad guy. When it finally ended, I packed my stuff in 2 days and moved into the first place I could afford. That ended up being apartment 3B in a building everyone in town just called the Wellington. It had this sagging brown facade and always smelled faintly like wet concrete. But I was fine with it. I worked weird hours doing contract editing jobs from home, so I didn't see a lot of people. I kept to myself mostly. I liked the quiet, or I thought I did. I moved in on a Thursday. By Sunday night, I already knew something was off. The weirdest thing? It started with pokes, like literally, poking. I thought I was dreaming the first time it happened. It was late, maybe 2 or 3 a.m. I had fallen asleep on the couch with the TV on low. I woke up to this distinct pressure on my shoulder. Not a slap, not a jolt, just a slow, deliberate poke. 2 fingers. I sat up, groggy, and looked around. The TV was still on, the lamp still buzzing. No one was there. I figured it had to be a muscle twitch. You know, like when your body jerks you awake. That's what I told myself. But it kept happening. Almost every night I'd wake up to that same poke, always on my left shoulder, always just once. Like something was testing me, like it wanted to see how I'd react. At first, I thought maybe it was my brain playing tricks on me, stress, poor sleep, too much caffeine. I even joked about it to my buddy Eric one day over Xbox. Dude, I think I've got a ghost with boundary issues. He laughed. I laughed too. But inside, I wasn't joking, because it wasn't just the poking. Soon, things started moving. I'd leave a book on the coffee table before bed and wake up to find it on the floor, pages splayed like it had been tossed. One morning, I woke up and every single cabinet door in the kitchen was hanging open. No sign of a break-in, no damage, nothing missing, just wrong. I told myself I was sleepwalking. I even set up my phone to record me one night, left it propped up on the kitchen counter to catch anything weird. It caught something all right. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just laid there in bed, staring at the ceiling, ears tuned to every tiny creak and pop of the apartment. Around 3:12 a.m., I heard something fall in the living room, just a soft thud. The next morning, I checked the footage. There was no one in the video, but around 3:12, clear as day, the screen wobbled slightly and a book flew off the table, just shot off like someone had slapped it. Not a slow slide, not gravity, a literal toss. There was no one there, nothing in view. Just the lamp casting long shadows on the ugly carpet. That was the first time I felt real fear. Not just unease, not just, maybe I'm imagining things, real, teeth-grinding, chest-tightening fear. I didn't know what to do. It's not like you can call the cops on a ghost. Over the next couple weeks, it got worse. And weirder, the pokes became more frequent. Sometimes 2 in one night. Always in the same place. Always when I was drifting off. And it wasn't just books or kitchen stuff being moved anymore. My bedroom door slammed shut one night. It was open. I always left it open a crack, and around 3:15, it slammed with enough force to rattle the picture frames. I shot up in bed so fast I nearly passed out. I got up, turned on every light in the apartment, and just stood there in my underwear holding a broom like it was a weapon. Nothing. No one. Still, I didn't move out. I should have. But I didn't. Because somehow, the longer I stayed, the more it felt like I was being tested, like something was slowly peeling me apart. And the scariest part? I was starting to get used to it. It's like my brain was trying to normalize what was happening. I'd wake up to a lamp on the floor and just mutter "great" before picking it up. Like that was normal. It wasn't. I even started hearing faint tapping when I was working. I'd be typing at my desk and it would start tick, 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 sometimes from the baseboards, sometimes from inside the closet. And once, terrifyingly, right behind my monitor. When I whipped around, nothing. Just the quiet buzz of my old laptop and the soft hum of the refrigerator through the wall. That alone wasn't enough to send me packing. What finally did, it was that Tuesday night. Or maybe it was early Wednesday. I don't even remember anymore. Those days all blend together now. I had fallen asleep on the couch again. The living room lamp was on. The hum of the fridge was the only sound. At exactly 3:09 a.m., I woke up to the poke. But this time, it wasn't my shoulder. It was my face. 2 cold fingers pressing slowly against my cheek. I froze. I didn't even open my eyes. I just lay there, every hair on my body standing up, heart beating so hard I thought I might black out. And then I heard it. A giggle. High-pitched. Just a single burst of childish laughter, and then the sound of something running, like bare feet across the linoleum. I shot up and screamed. I didn't care if the neighbors heard. I turned in every direction, ran into the kitchen, flipped on the lights. Nothing. No one. But the salt shaker had been thrown across the room. It was lying near the fridge, contents spilled like tiny bones across the tile. That night, I left. I packed a bag and crashed on Eric's couch. I didn't care how paranoid I sounded. I told him everything. He didn't laugh this time. He actually looked scared. He told me he'd read something online a while ago about spirits that start small. He said the ones that poke or move things. Sometimes that's how they get your attention, and if you don't leave, they escalate. I went back 2 days later to get the rest of my stuff. I didn't even go alone. I brought Eric and his cousin. We moved fast, barely spoke. Every door was open. Every light bulb in the hallway had been unscrewed and was lying on the floor. There was writing on my bedroom mirror. Just one word. Stay. It was written in what looked like ash. I didn't. We drove away and I never went back. I heard from the landlord a month later. He said someone else had moved in, but they broke the lease after a week. Said the place was unlivable. That's all he told me. I didn't ask for details. 3 months later, I found an old forum post buried on a ghost hunting thread, time-stamped 5 years earlier. A guy said he'd lived in 3B at the Wellington, that he kept waking up to a poke on his face and hearing children giggle. He said he thought he was losing his mind. His last post ended with, "What happens if I let it stay?" No one ever replied. To this day, I still wake up sometimes thinking I felt that same poke on my cheek. And sometimes I think I hear that same giggle in the distance, but I never open my eyes. My name's Katie, and this started a few months after I moved into my first solo apartment. I was 26, fresh out of a long-term relationship, and determined to start over. I found a place in a quiet corner of the city, a modest 1-bedroom in an older brick building just off a side street. It wasn't perfect, but it had charm, original wood floors, tall windows, and a weirdly cozy atmosphere. The place had this slightly dated feel to it, like everything was just a little too still, but I liked the quiet. It made it easier to work. I'm a freelance graphic designer, so I spend most of my time on my laptop. That place became my bubble, until it didn't. The first weird thing happened during a client Zoom call. I remember because it was the first time I'd ever had a glitch on that laptop. The screen went black for 3 full seconds, then flicked back on like nothing happened. My client even asked if I lost connection. I just laughed it off. "Weird," I said. "Must be my Wi-Fi." It wasn't. That night, as I was brushing my teeth, I heard my Bluetooth speaker turn on in the other room. It made that little powering up sound. I hadn't touched it since the weekend. I figured maybe my phone had accidentally triggered it. But when I checked, my phone's Bluetooth was off. Things like that kept happening. The next week, I was scrolling Instagram when my phone froze, just locked up completely. Then the screen flickered and a random photo appeared. One I hadn't seen in years, a blurry picture of me and my ex, taken in my old apartment. I didn't even remember having it saved. It stayed on the screen for a solid 10 seconds, then vanished, back to the home screen. I told myself I was tired. Maybe I tapped something by accident, but my hands were in my lap. The static started the week after that. Late at night, I'd be working in bed, and the screen on my TV would just flicker on. Not to a show, not to the home screen. Just static, pure grayscale, crawl-in noise. Like an old TV with no signal. I don't even have cable. It shouldn't have been able to do that. Sometimes it would stay on for 30 seconds. Sometimes longer. And every single time, the remote wouldn't respond. I had to physically unplug the thing. Eventually, I unplugged it for good, but the static didn't stop. It just moved. My laptop would freeze up, screen turning pure white, then gray, then snowy static again. Sometimes I'd hear faint clicking or buzzing behind the screen, like someone tapping on the inside. One night, I swear I heard breathing coming from my phone. I was watching TikToks when the screen dimmed without me touching it. Then a low, staticky inhale, like someone was crouched right next to me, breathing into a mic. I threw the phone across the room, and still, I tried to explain it away. Faulty tech, maybe some malware. I wiped my devices, did factory resets, replaced my router. I even bought a new phone. Didn't matter, the new phone did it too. By the end of the month, I was sleeping with all my devices powered off. No electronics in the bedroom. Even my electric toothbrush started turning on by itself in the middle of the night. That one made me cry. Not because of the noise, but because I knew it wasn't just a glitch. Nothing else was plugged in. Nothing else could have triggered it. I started keeping a journal just to track the events. Here's an excerpt. April 12th at 2:33 a.m. Laptop fan turned on while closed. Screen lit up on its own. April 14th, phone lit up in the dark. Notifications showed gibberish symbols, not emojis, just black and white blocks. April 17th, static on unplugged TV, unplugged. Still. April 20th, woke up to hear faint humming. Realized it was coming from my desk. My tablet was vibrating nonstop. Screen said, "I see you." That was the night I unplugged everything in my house, every outlet, even the fridge. I stayed at a friend's place that weekend. When I came back Monday morning, the power was still out, just as I left it. But the microwave clock was on, flashing 3:33. There was no power. I walked straight to the breaker panel and opened it. The main switch had been flipped off. I remember staring at it, this weird, hollow ache opening in my chest. My hands were shaking. I didn't flip it back on. I left it, gathered a few essentials, and stayed at a motel for 3 days. I called an electrician. He came by, looked things over, and said nothing seemed wrong. Wiring was old, sure, but intact. No evidence of a short. Nothing that could explain what I described. He said it was probably stress and bad dreams. I knew better. The last thing that happened before I left for good was the worst. It was a Thursday night. I had just come back from grocery shopping. The power was on. Everything seemed fine. I dared to feel a little normal. I even watched a show on my iPad, curled up on the couch with my blanket and tea. Right before midnight, the screen dimmed, then black, and then white text faded onto the screen. "Hello, Katie." I dropped the tablet. It thudded onto the floor and the screen went dark. I picked it up with trembling hands. Nothing. Just the lock screen, but then my phone rang. I don't know why I answered. The screen just said, "Unknown number." When I picked up, there was nothing for a moment. Then the sound of static, and then a voice. It didn't sound human. It was warped, garbled, like it had been passed through too many filters, but it said one word: downstairs. My blood went cold. My apartment didn't have a downstairs, not one I could access, just a maintenance storage unit and locked boiler room. I hung up. 30 seconds later, every light in the apartment flickered. Then, the unmistakable sound of my Bluetooth speaker turning on, and then the sound of footsteps. Slow, dragging steps, coming from inside the apartment. I grabbed my keys, my bag, and left. I didn't even stop to put on shoes. I didn't look back. I never went back to that apartment. I broke the lease, never explained why. And now, even in my new place, sometimes my phone flickers. Sometimes my laptop fan spins up in the middle of the night. And once, just once, my Alexa whispered, "Downstairs." I live on the top floor. My name is Sam, and I work as a freelance photographer. Because of the nature of my job, I tend to move around a lot. I've lived in everything from cramped apartments in big cities to quiet, remote cabins in the mountains. But nothing, and I mean nothing, has ever affected me like the time I lived in the basement unit of a townhouse in Philadelphia. It was early 2022. Rent prices were climbing, and I needed something cheap and close to downtown. A friend of a friend told me about this semi-finished basement unit that her landlord was renting out under the table. It wasn't listed anywhere, but the price was too good to pass up. $500 a month, all utilities included. I met the landlord, an older guy named Martin, retired plumber, friendly but a little cagey. He showed me the unit. Separate entrance, private bathroom, kitchen that was more of a converted laundry room, but it was clean, and I honestly liked how quiet it felt down there. At the time, I thought that was a good thing. The first few weeks were normal. I got used to the quirks of the place quickly. The pipes rattled when the water ran upstairs, and the ceiling was low enough that I had to duck under one of the exposed beams every time I crossed the room. But I didn't mind. It was a roof over my head. Then one night, something strange happened. I was editing photos on my laptop when the floor lamp next to the couch started flickering. Not subtle. It was like someone was twisting the bulb rapidly. I checked the cord, made sure it wasn't loose, then replaced the bulb altogether. The flickering stopped until the next night. This time, it wasn't just the lamp. My laptop screen dimmed and brightened on its own, like someone was playing with the brightness keys. I ran a virus scan. Nothing came up. A fluke, I figured. These things happen. But it kept getting weirder. I started waking up in the middle of the night, always at the exact same time, 3:47 a.m. No sound, no dream that I remembered. Just this sharp, alert feeling like someone had tapped me on the forehead. Every time I'd check the clock. 3:47. Like clockwork. It wasn't until the second month that I started hearing it. At first, it was just a thump, like someone dropping something heavy directly above me, but I knew the layout of the townhouse. The room above mine wasn't furnished. It was being used for storage. There was no one up there. Then came the footsteps. Late at night, I'd hear them pacing, long, slow strides across the ceiling. I asked Martin once if someone had moved into the room above me. He shook his head and said, "Nope, still empty." When I pressed him, he waved me off. "Old house," he said. "You'll hear things." But it wasn't just the noise. It was the smell. Around mid-March, I started noticing this faint odor, like wet stone, moldy drywall. I cleaned everything, scrubbed the bathroom, bleached the drains, aired the place out. but the smell would always come back late at night. Just faint enough to not be overwhelming, just strong enough that I couldn't ignore it. I bought a carbon monoxide detector. Nothing. By April, things escalated. One night I came home late from a gig. The basement door was open, not just unlocked, open. I remember freezing in the stairwell, my heart pounding. I was sure I had locked it. I always did. I called out, thinking maybe Martin had come in to fix something. No answer. I crept down slowly, phone light in hand. Nothing had been taken. Nothing was out of place. But when I got to the bathroom, I found something that nearly made me drop my phone. The mirror was fogged up, like someone had taken a hot shower, and in the middle of the condensation, smeared with a finger, was a single word: stay. That night, I slept with the lights on. I tried to convince myself it had been a prank. Maybe one of Martin's kids had access. Maybe some weird neighborhood thing, but the pit in my stomach wouldn't go away. The next few nights I heard breathing. That sounds ridiculous, I know, but I swear, when the lights were out and I was lying in bed, I could hear it. In the corner of the room. This soft, rasping inhale and exhale, like someone struggling to breathe through their nose. I'd turn on the lights and it would stop. Every time. By May, I started looking for other places. But my savings were tight, and Philly rent wasn't doing me any favors. I decided to stick it out until the end of my lease. Then came the dream. I was in the basement, standing at the foot of my bed. Only everything was off. The walls were darker, the air heavier. I turned to look toward the bathroom, and the door was wide open. Inside, a man was crouched over the sink, his back to me. He was whispering something under his breath, over and over again. His hands were pressed against the mirror. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't move. Then he turned around. His face was wrong, bloated, pale, eyes sunken deep into the sockets. His mouth opened, but instead of speaking, he screamed. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. It was 3:47 a.m. I moved out 2 weeks later, broke the lease, and ate the penalty. A few months after I left, I got a message on Instagram from someone I didn't know. Her name was Casey. She said she found my name in a forum post about weird rental experiences, said she recognized the address I listed. Turns out she had toured the basement unit the week after I moved out. She didn't end up renting it. Said the moment she stepped inside, she felt like she was being watched. Said the air smelled like mildew and burnt metal. But what really got her was the bathroom. When she looked in the mirror, she swore she saw someone standing behind her. But when she turned around, no one was there. She asked me if I had ever seen anything while living there. I told her no, but that wasn't true, because sometimes, late at night, I still dream of that mirror. And sometimes I wake up at 3:47 a.m., and when I do, I swear I hear breathing.